Morning and welcome to the 7:30 edition of Morning Coffee with Brigid. I'm Brigid and it's wintertime, so we're just past the Christmas holiday, which was yesterday. I hope everybody who celebrates had a nice Christmas. And so I just decided, I'm moving it up. I'm wondering how many people remembered that I changed the time. Alex did. Good morning, Alex. How are you? Hope you had a nice holiday yesterday. It was, this is my first time. It was weird because I fell asleep really early. Like, I went for Christmas lunch is usually what we do because, my brother-in-law picks everybody up and drops them off. Like, he goes pick up my mom, my aunt, and then they pick up me on the way. And, good morning. Doing well. Good. Good. It's good to hear it. And Suda, good morning. I was just talking about how yesterday, we had a nice Christmas lunch and everything. But then, so I got home probably maybe around 3:30. But I ended up falling asleep like around 6. I mean, that's how tired I was yesterday. So I woke up around 1:30, which is almost a full night's sleep, really, when you think about it. And if you do the math, and so my nephew and I were texting at 1:30 in the morning because they're 3 hours behind in California, and he apparently didn't. I have 2 nephews out in California, and this is the one, not the one with the kids and everything, but he had said he had a terrible migraine all day. And good morning, Leela. My nephew he said he had like the worst migraine, and so he didn't actually end up going to Christmas dinner at his brother's house. He says, unfortunately I didn't get to give the girls their gifts. His 2 nieces. They're my grandnieces, but they're his nieces. So he says it'll have to be another time. I said, well, that just extends Christmas for him then, but I guess he was starting to feel that, sort of starting to feel better, 9-10 o'clock at night. And so he's like, I was wondering why you were up. But I went to bed super early. And then of course, probably around 3:30 a.m. towards 4, I was starting to feel tired again because my body's just not wanting to be up. And so I'm kind of in that state of like, how it is. You're up for a while, then you go back to sleep for like an hour, and then you get up and you're kind of like, So I'm kind of, anyway, that's kind of like what today's like. It's a long way around of explaining that. All natural light today, which is good. I don't have to do any, those horrible ring lights that look weird. And so again, I'm saying I hope everybody had a nice day yesterday. If you celebrate Christmas, then I hope you had a good time and that things went well. Mine was, it was like I said, it was good. It was good. I went there my sister sounded absolutely exhausted, but I think she was trying to she was making beef tenderloin, I think it was. And she says, I didn't really prepare the day before. Like I had I guess there's a lot of stuff to be cut off of it. Like if the butcher doesn't prepare it and tie it and everything, she thought, I could do that myself. She's like, I had no idea how much because I took like a pound of like fat and other stuff off of it because I had no idea it was going to be this bad. And when she described it to me, I'm like, I would totally not want to do that myself. But so by the time we got there, she was just exhausted. Normally she has more things kind of together, and she was just like, she was really tired. So, but it was still a nice day. We had a nice dinner and everything, and she's a very good cook. So everything was good. Now this morning, that was interesting. Let's back up from before this morning. Christmas Eve into Christmas Day, I had a really strange dream at night, and I kind of, I do my Azrael communications, and he confirmed that because it wasn't so much that I had a dream that something happened, it was more like I was asleep and somebody said something to me, and so I confirmed it with him, and what he said to me was I'll tell the exact phrasing. The sun is now feminine and the moon is now masculine. Okay, that was what was said to me. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. Now, again, depending on your mythologies, you could... I said, actually, if I try to think about it more, say, in terms of Hindu mythology, where the moon is masculine, Chandra is masculine deity, and the sun, although Surya is also masculine, in that particular way. But if you think about the active principle as being more like Shakti, and I'm like, okay, I can kind of wrap my mind around that. But it was just very interesting because one of the things that I remember I was talking about different stuff that's just kind of come up during the year. And one of the things that came up a couple of years ago in somebody else's download, we'll call it, was that we are, that things are going to be reversed. Categories are going to be reversed. Things are going to be flipped around. And didn't quite say exactly when that was going to happen, but that seems like that's what's happening. And I'm like, okay, I'm not sure what the implication's going to be of that, because, but it almost seems like the feminine principle is going to be the powerful, active one, and the masculine one was going to be secondary. Because I did get another message a few days ago, which was odd. It was something like, what was it? Gra Chaoska. Okay, which is basically the moon is angry at the earth. I'm like, it's really weird. Like, what does that mean? And, but I don't know. And good morning. There's something that's kind of flipped around there. So I don't quite know what that means. I did notice, because I thought like the drones had stopped coming around, those whatever they are. But then I noticed they were coming in the morning sky instead of the evening sky. And I'm like, it's just weird. It feels like a lot of things have flipped around. And I don't quite know what that means yet. But I said, is this something I should say something about? And he said, yeah, it is. So I'm like, okay. So I don't know what kind of a difference that's going to make to people. Maybe it'll be interesting to see what what transpires with that. But one thing that was definitely said is that, the focus, rather than, I think at least one aspect of that I think might be part of what's going on, and I can't say for sure, is that we are moving into the heart space. Now, this is a thing, and we talk about it a lot, like, having a more open heart and so forth, but it's like, no, like even thinking and so forth, and the way that we perceive the world and the way that we expand our horizons in the world is through the heart space and not through the head. And even though it's not that goes away entirely, obviously, but that's going to be more the way. And so some of the readings I was doing this morning, here's our consciousness card, right? Some of the readings I was doing this morning was saying, okay, you need to recognize that you are free. It's the same thing. You need to recognize that you are free. It's the Two of Swords energy. You have the head and the heart, and you in order to, and that they're battling, and you have to let go of one, right? Or you have to let go of both. And I'm like, well, when you to tell people that, I'm like, well, how does one go about doing that? I mean, it's easy to talk about that. So if I tell you stop thinking and stop going with your head and your heart, and just, I guess maybe just go, and don't do that. I said that's a hard thing to explain to people, that you just need to let go of. Basically, I suppose, let go whatever attachment that you have to things. But it occurred to me, because we're also in this time where I feel like Alex says, interesting. I'll have to say I've been feeling a marked shift in the last year. Just wasn't sure what to make of that intuitive message. Yeah, there is definitely some kind of a shift that's I feel like it's been a lot of shifts, haven't it? I mean, we've been talking a lot about shifts in energy, timeline shifts, and now there's these reversals that are going on. But I was told that that's part of what's going on right now, is that you're going to have these flips and these reversals. And we're still seeing this kind of energy of unexpected stuff that's coming in. But in terms of how one connects to the heart space, or how one frees oneself from the intellect, especially in a space where we're kind of being told, makes so much sense is what Alex is saying. Yeah, it's kind of like we're told to slow down. We get our friend the turtle card in here, right? We're told to slow down, but at the same time, it's Capricorn season, so we're still plodding ahead, right? I mean, this is the season of practical preparation and persistence and things like that, right? So how do we persistently move ahead and slow down? You could say it's a slow move, right? That we're moving gradually, like Knight of Pentacles energy, like slow moving, one step at a time, which is certainly part of it, I think. But but I also am seeing a whole lot around the idea that we're moving into a joyful space. Now, we've talked about that too, and people are saying, okay, well, what does that mean? Because a lot of times we've got so many things going on and we're anxious and we're trying to say, well, no, I have to do this thing over here and this thing over here. And if I don't do this thing, this terrible thing will happen, you know. And so I think one of the cards that came up, because I'm playing with this deck too, which is the light language deck. And light language talks a lot about frequencies and on being on certain, what frequency are we on? And if we're not on the right frequency for us, it feels dissonant. Like you compare it to like a radio station. Like if you're not tuned into the right station, you're everything is just static. Like, you know, you're not really hearing what's going on, and you feel like you're out of alignment. And I think that was one of the things that was coming up when I keep seeing things on freedom, which is that we are free to choose where we're going. And interestingly, we're talking about a space, like we've been talking about void for a while, right? Like about possibility, about empty space. That's like another theme. And I think what it's saying is, all right, you've got an empty space now, make something in it, you know? Which is kind of funny when you say it that way, but that's kind of the thing. Like, yeah, you're in void. And use the void, because a lot of times we think of void as like an abyss. It's like, oh no, I'm going to fall into the abyss and that's going to be it. It's like, no, the void is where, it's like the womb. It's a possibility. It's the place where you can make stuff. There's another Alan Watts video that I watched the other day, and he was talking about how nothing exists. He says, even if you break down matter and you break it down into molecules, and then you break it down into atoms, and then you break it down into protons and electrons and all that stuff. He's like, everything is just patterns. He's like, if you look at things under a microscope, they're patterns. He says the only thing that really exists, and between those patterns are spaces. He says the only thing that really exists is form and structure. Okay, that's the way he had put it. Void and structure. You know, void and form, really. It's just like those are the only things that exist. Like that's pure masculine, feminine energy. Void and structure. So we kind of get into this space where we have these things and we have these things going on, and so right. So the question then becomes, what kind of a structure are we creating, or what kind of a structure is emerging from something? And yeah, and I think that's why we're being encouraged to play in this kind of a space. And to make something that is joyful rather than make something that is, you know, gloomy and heavy and anxiety laden and so forth. I mean, we can make things like that. I think creatively, like I said, I've often said to people, creatively, that's a good way to manage to deal with certain anxieties that you may have. Is that you may want to deal with them creatively. We can write them out. We can paint them. We can make music. And there's things that people do, whatever people feel comfortable, whatever milieu people feel comfortable expressing in. It's something that you can do. But we also can make things that make us happy, that are joyful as well. And it's interesting just how much stuff just seems to be in the way of doing that. You know, it's just kind of strange. But in any case, I just feel like what we're kind of being called to do right now is to, I don't know, we're being called, it's like there's the need to drop both the head and the heart. And I said, okay, well, how does one go about doing that? I'm trying to get myself back on track here. And to be honest, what I'm doing is I'm listening, I'm hearing the heat turn on, and I'm like, is the boiler turning on with the heat? Because I had that problem the other day, and I'm like, okay, it's not as cold, but, you know, anyway. So that's just kind of, you know, what I'm keeping an ear out for. But, so what they're saying is, you know, think about the things that you're doing. And the question is, what do you want to do versus what do you have to do? So what are you committed to doing? Okay, so what are your commitments? Like, obviously, if you have a job, that's a commitment, right? If you have family, there's certain commitments that are around your family if you live with them. I live alone, so I don't have quite the same commitments. But But when you have these things, then, you have these commitments and you have these things. So then the question becomes, okay, and of the things that you're not committed to doing, okay, if we think about, I don't know, you have time off, like a lot of people have this week off, maybe not everybody does, but a lot of people might have this week off, especially like if you work in education or something, like a lot of times schools are closed, things like that. So people may feel like, okay, well, this week I'm off, so I'm gonna accomplish all this stuff, right? That's when you're gonna do all the stuff. And sometimes the answer is, well, do you want to do all the stuff? And are you beating yourself up for being lazy, or is it really necessary that you do all that stuff? Because sometimes really what you actually need is you just need time to recharge. You don't want to keep pushing yourself to keep doing things and to keep redoing things. And like I said, figure out what's necessary, figure out what is the thing that you actually want to be spending your time doing. And of the things you have to do, how can you do those, potentially in a way that's more like a meditation? And if the things that you're doing are causing you anxiety, okay, these are things that, you take a deep breath and be like, it's like holding your breath to eat your vegetables kind of thing, right? If you have to do that every time for something, is that something that, that area an area that needs to be changed? So for example, if you get up every day and you hate going to a job, like literally you're like, I would rather do anything than get up and go to this job, then it's time to change jobs, right? There's just certain things. So it's a matter of, I think as we're trying to create new patterns and flow into new spaces, it's kind of like, okay, see which places were blocked. And also sometimes when it comes to dealing with people, it's like, okay, if we're blocked, what can we do and what do we need to do? Is this something that needs to be confronted, or do we just flow around it and keep moving? Because, and not worry so much about the outcome. If the outcome has to do with us personally, or is going to personally affect us in some way, then we might be paying more attention to that. Otherwise, maybe we are, we're paying attention to that, but we don't have to, other times we may just be getting ourselves too emotionally involved in situations that are not really ours. I have quite a lot of this going on with family stuff right now, where I feel like I'm being pulled into different family dramas, and I'm just like, how much of this is really for me to even weigh in on? Like I find myself doing that. How much do I really have to weigh in on this? And when I do weigh in on it, I try to weigh in on it like from the therapist's point of view, right? I take a step back and I say, okay, well, if I was talking to a client, this is how I would, I'm not a therapist at this point, I'm a coach, but you know what I mean? Taking that point of view of, if somebody else, if any of you, for instance, contacted me and said this is going on, how would I look at that as somebody not involved? So anyway, these are just various things that I'm thinking about, because we're trying to deal with strategy for letting go of the head and the heart. It's sort of like we have to kind of make the simple decision of how important is this? If it is, how important is it that I be involved, and do I really want to do it? I think those are the first two fundamental questions that any of us wants to ask. Do I want to be involved, and do I want to do it? And again, not because if we feel like we have to roll up our sleeves, grit our teeth, and go into something all the time, then every day is a battle. Life is a battle. Every day is a battle. And do we want to be fighting those battles? So I don't know. These are things I'm just thinking about in terms of how are we moving ahead with things? How are we trying to how are we trying to deal with that head-heart conundrum? Because it's very easy to say, well, just drop everything. It was funny. I remember Max and I talking about this at one point. Those of you who've gone to the ISFM and know Max, who's one of the teachers, we were talking before when we were setting the ISFM stuff up. He was talking about Alan Watts, and he's like, I love him. He's a great guy. He's like, but he's like, really, is what he's telling us to do realistic? I mean, it just doesn't seem like talking about this idea of, just see yourself in relation to everything, just drop everything. He's like, how that's way easier said than done. Okay. And that's I think kind of the thing. So it's like, okay, so how does one start to do that? So if I get up and I start saying, I have to do this, this, and this, the question is, does it feel like a chore? And the second thing is, do I really have to? Or is it something I could do a different day? Sometimes like, okay, I have exams to grade, I had exams to finish. Yes, I have a deadline on that had to get done. So I had to push myself through to get it done. Didn't feel like doing it, but I was like, all right, well, or you break things down into smaller pieces. Well, okay, I've got 30 papers, I'll just read 5 right now. Or sometimes it's just better to just keep going if you're in the groove, because, then you're not, if I don't keep going, then, then I can eventually just lose my, then it's like I have to go back later and it's like, oh crap, now I'm going through this whole, I got to motivate myself to do it all over again, right? And I think I'm also just thinking about this space that we have at the end of the year, because I don't know about you guys, but I know I feel like when I'm at the end of the year, even though this is a condition of time that we collectively associate. We associate this with an ending and a beginning. Now, there are a lot of endings and beginnings that are happening. Why December 31st should have to mark a particular ending, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't have to, right? This is just a date that we have picked. And this is a thing that we have decided. I mean, why say isn't November 1st New Year's Day after Samhain, or why isn't the day after the winter solstice or the summer solstice like the beginning of a new year or cycle or something? You know what I mean? Like what are looking at January, and Alex is saying the end of the year tends to feel kind of depressing to me. I can never fully identify why, but I'm guessing it's the timeline thing. Right, because it's a time, because it's a time of ending. So we start, don't do enough in time, right? Right, exactly. That's the Saturnian thing where we start going, what did I accomplish this year? Like we start to look back and start thinking about what's unfinished or what's been lost. And so the end of the year becomes almost that wrap up, and sometimes it doesn't come across favorably. So we either look forward to the new year. That's why we make New Year's resolutions, right? I'm going to do this year. I'm going to, lose 20 pounds, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And, I'm going to, I'm going to run that marathon. I'm going to, whatever it is you're going to do. We all kind of have these resolutions, and oftentimes by February we've forgotten them, right? So, but there's this sense here. It's almost like it's funny that Scrooge was something that's kind of connected with this time of year, because when I think of Scrooge and I think of that, of A Christmas Carol, what happens with Scrooge? I mean, he meets Leela says, in my family, January is the time to let things ... Get the rest of the sentence. But I'll finish the Scrooge thought real quick. It's, he looks at past, present, and future, and his role in it, and then he decides he's going to make a change, right? Because the future doesn't look bright for him. And it's, in a way, that's kind of what we do at this time of year. So, to let things die. Okay, she got the extra word in there. I was wondering if you were going to say that. And interestingly, January, to let things die, right? It is winter. Okay, in the broadest sense, it's winter time. Things are dead. Let them be dead, right? But also, I don't know. Again, that's kind of a thing. I often find that when people are lost, they are lost it's around January. That January seems to be an interesting kind of time when things, I don't know. I feel like kind of, I don't know if I want to use the phrase per capita, but it just seems like there's more loss that happens in January. Whenever I've had a lot of family losses that happen like in a cluster, it only seems to be in January. And Yeah, and Leo's also saying, yeah, but January being the time, like we might think of December as being the time, but really we've got all the celebrations in December, and then we move into January, and yeah, you've got that whole month there where things are, I mean, at least you're in the Northern Hemisphere, that are very barren. That is, things are not growing, and things die. So that makes a lot of sense, actually. But we are, I don't know. It's interesting. It's like we kind of start to do this, and I think what maybe what the messages are that I'm getting, at least more collectively, is okay. Rather than necessarily always looking at it in terms of what's lost, what are the possibilities here? Because as things die, new things are created. Like the birth and death are linked. They're not two separate things. They're linked. So what's born or what can be born? So rather than looking to the past, and it's funny because I have got a lot of Six of Cups energy where it's like looking back to the past and lamenting the past, or chastising ourselves for what we did or didn't do. I like November or March, April to take stock and move ahead, is what Suda is saying. Yeah, and it makes sense because that's when you're kind of. Certainly March, April, that's spring. This is when you're the time to start new projects and to think about things. And November, kind of in preparation for winter, right? Like preparation for all of the stuff that goes on, depending on, not only the holidays, but also what goes on in people's families and so forth. But we may have times that that we prefer to change, and this almost becomes an established time of change in our minds, like December 31st, January 1st, we celebrate a few New Year's, Suda's saying. Yeah, well, that's true, right? I mean, and the thing is, I think next year is going to be a year of a lot of new beginnings as well. I mean, even outside of our regular cycle, I think there's going to be, like I said, we're moving out of Pisces energy into Aries energy in terms of the work that we're doing, right? We've got Neptune moving into Aries. We've got Saturn moving into Aries. Uranus will be flirting with Gemini. There's going to be all this kind of stuff that's going on. And it's going to, literally I just keep saying no, there's going to be changes. There's still going to be stuff that we're not expecting to come about. And so sometimes it's good not to make too many hard and fast plans because something else could come in that could change the whole picture. And that seems to be kind of the thing. Like, okay, keep persisting in what you're doing, but be aware that there could be something that comes in that just changes the whole dynamic. Not in a negative way, okay? I don't see this happening in a negative way, but that it can make us look at life differently and kind of turn things around and think about things differently. So, I don't know. I'm seeing next year as kind of a year. We have the potential, I guess, to make it a year or to move ahead and to make this about expanding our horizons and working with our possibilities, rather than kind of staying, because a loop has definitely been broken. We always feel like we're in the same loop, going over and over again, following the same territory, doing the same thing. And the messages that I'm certainly getting are, no, that's not what's happening. It's, we have this, that some kind of cycle has been broken. Whatever matrix we're in, somehow we've broken out of it. So it's like now you have a chance to do the thing. It's like if somebody says, okay, now you have the opportunity. And we may say to ourselves, oh, no, we don't. I still don't have enough money. I don't have enough this. I don't have enough that. And it's saying, well, don't look at it in those terms. Creating things, it's almost like in this kind of creative energy, it's like the right things will appear at the right time. If you're moving towards doing a particular thing or focused on doing a particular thing, and they do say in order to kind of decide what that is, like we do have guidance as well. We have spiritual guidance. We have our inner voice. We have things that if we take that time out, in the time of stillness to hear what that voice is telling us, we can know what direction to move in, and then things do fall into place. And that's part of I think that's part of the process. If we're talking about moving into a sphere of like where the feminine is highlighted, if the feminine is now the sun, right? Then you want to move into a space where, the feminine is about going with flow. Feminine is not about I'm going to go in and conquer it. Feminine is about going with flow. And so I feel like we're kind of being pushed in the direction of doing that. I wanted to do a couple of readings. I'm going to use the light language cards first and see what we get on this subject. Because, yeah, and apologies if I feel like I'm kind of diffuse this morning. When my sleep cycle's screwed up, it's like I feel weird. Alex says, I'm in that mode. I feel like I'm waiting room, waiting to be called. Not that I'm putting effort in, but it seems pointless to keep pushing so hard. Well, right, exactly. We just kind of keep persisting what we're doing. And this is interesting. Our card is create space. Okay. Back to that energy. So let's see what we have for that one. Okay, so here's the message with that one. Create space for new desires by learning how to be happy now. There we go. That's what we're trying to say. We all want certain things in our life to change, and it's up to each of us to do something about it. If you apply action from a position of truly wanting change, you will create evidence of that desire as manifestations of change. Once you notice something you would like to change, take a breath and say thank you. Recognizing what you want to change brings you more clarity on what you would like to change it to. Your job is to create the space for your dreams and desires to fill. Do this and you will begin to receive direction and wisdom. This is literally what I just said, right? And maybe not as good of a way. Create this space by coming into balance, meditating, focusing on the moment, or thinking of person, animal, place, situation that makes you smile. Feel the smile stretch through your body and relax, knowing that all you desire is on its way. You empower your whole being because you don't need conditions to change to feel joyous in the present. You bathe in unconditional love, breathe it in, and enjoy how good you feel. Right. So the lesson there is just that, yeah, we, rather than living in a space where we're anxious all the time, if you're always in a space of joy, then it's not like you have to have those things to come to you to feel joyful. I mean, they will come to you. But if you relax into what's going on, it's kind of like things, if you create the space for that, then that's what's going to come in. And so, yeah, but I would say that because for me, I'm thinking, okay, understood that we want to make space for joy and so forth, but many of us are very cerebral. We have certain ways of analyzing things, and especially if you're somebody who does spiritual work, you're doing a lot of self-reflection all the time. And especially if we're being called to do things differently, then we're immediately going, okay, how am I going to look at things differently? So, and telling somebody to let go, we probably have heard that phrase over and over again. It's like, well, let go of what? Like how? So, yeah, it's kind of figuring out how do I let go of things? And, and you would think, well, you just let it go. But the thing is, it's not like we're holding on to something. It's not like I'm not holding on to this and I'm going to drop it, right? It's not like that. We're holding on to, and the thing is, we're often not consciously, even if we consciously do an affirmation and say, I let this go. Half the time you walk away from that and then later on you're like, nah, I haven't let it go. It's like, it comes back up and then you get frustrated with yourself. You're like, ooh, I'm not letting this go. And so I think what it's saying is you have to recognize that the only way you're going to let the mind eventually let go of things is to be in the space where you are trying to cultivate your own center and really just to stop worrying about letting go. It's like, you need to let go of letting go, right? You need to kind of just let it happen. And we're not always good at that. Like I was asking a lot about actions when I was up early this morning, and I just kept getting the void moon card. Like, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to do anything. You just don't try to do anything. Just kind of be in that space and kind of do it. And not, because when we find ourselves sitting here thinking it through and going through this side and this side, eventually it's just like, okay, I'm going to focus on something else. Focus on something, as they say, not important, Let's see what these cards come up with for us today. But yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling like there's this kind of this space where there's just a lot going on collectively. There's a lot of change, and it's like, okay, I feel like there's an opportunity here to do things differently. Maybe that's where I'm kind of going with this, and that, maybe the rest of us are going through this as well. There's an opportunity to do things differently in a way that, regardless of what's going on in the external world, that has more meaning for us or can bring us more peace. can put us in a place. And so I think when we talk about changing our routines, we need to start with thinking about, what do I want to be doing? Is this what I want to be doing? Or is this, or if it's something that I'm duty bound, like, I need this to make money to pay the bills or whatever, then, okay, can I turn it into a meditation? Like if you have a very repetitive job, I always found that when I had repetitive jobs, I actually didn't mind, because you kind of get your cup of tea, you put some music on, you sit down and you do your thing. And you can just kind of get into it. But if it becomes like, fuck, I gotta get up and do this again, then you need to think about, okay, well, is that the thing you necessarily have to be spending your time on? And the short-term answer might be yes, but that might not be the long-term answer. In fact, I don't think anything is ever, it's always going to be this way forever and ever, and you can never escape from it. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, there are changes that could be made. It might just be a matter of timing. But, yeah, I don't know. We're just thinking about these opportunities. Okay, so here's our reading. Center card is guidance. 3 of Pentacles. Guidance. Exactly what I've just said. We're being guided to do something different, okay? And that's an important thing to remember, too. We're not doing these things alone or in a vacuum. You are doing these, everything you do has the impact on the environment, right? It has an impact on you. And that doesn't mean that you have to sit there and overthink it, thinking, oh my God, I don't want to F this up. You don't have to overthink it. But I think this is why a lot of it's saying, well, choose to move towards what's joyful for you. Choose to move towards what makes you feel relaxed, what makes you feel happy, what makes you feel, even if it's something transient, or just, you know what, I'm gonna focus my attention on something that I think is like okay, I'm sitting here looking at this tree and the little birds are all over the place. I've got the little sparrows, we've got the little catbirds, and then there's at least 2 or 3 different types of woodpecker that like to come around because this tree is like really dead, and they're like, yeah, it's like chow time. But it's kind of nice just to be able to focus on that and not be like, oh, well, what's my to-do list say? I mean, I have a to-do list, but how urgent is it that I get it all done right now? We're always kind of like, I gotta hurry up and do things. I don't know. It's like slowing down to have a different kind of a flow, but still steadily kind of moving ahead. Our inner feeling of which we are unaware, we have the Lovers. Okay? So the Lovers is that is the energy of connection. Okay? Being connected to others. It can have to do with, if love is the thing that we're talking about here, what do we mean by love? It's going to be different things for different people. It can be love of family. It can be love of partner. It can be love of, children. Well, that'd be family, right? Yeah, it could just be a love of yourself. Well, love of yourself, really, fundamentally, as I've said. That's where you kind of have to start. Where's the self-love here? And the external feeling of which we're aware is awareness. We're aware of awareness. This is the Chariot card. There's an awareness. I think one thing that's kind of happened in this last year is that there has been kind of the clarity I think that has come in is that we're coming into awareness of who we are and what it is we're meant to do. I think there's a lot of us who are coming into, and if we're not there, we're certainly going to get there. And as we're moving into that clarity, we're now seeing how we connect with the bigger picture. How we connect to authenticity. Because when you connect to your own authenticity, you connect to love. You automatically do that. There's the Thunderbolt card. There's the Tower, right? And we got 3 majors in this reading, which is interesting. The Tower, remember I said, there's definitely, is what Suda's saying, yeah. There's a shakeup. There's a shakeup here. Or there's a shakeup that's coming. And you've got the 9 of Pentacles as the outcome. Now, this is the Ripeness card. So that's actually that's not a negative outcome. That's a good outcome. And boom chakalaka, yes. You say it for Joanne today. You are ripe and ready to do the thing. What fruit is ripe for picking? What's the harvest? What's the thing? And what kind of possibilities also are we creating in this new space? So there's an awareness here. And there's an awakening that's going on. And we always look at the Tower, of course, as like, oh, it's but a Tower moment can really be an epiphany too. It can be that moment of saying, holy crud, I've just figured it out, And that's what I think we're looking at here. And the ripeness says that, yeah, you have the resources, you're ready. Okay, you're ready to do something. Nines are you're pretty much almost at the stage of completion here. And so it's interesting. We are, we are being guided because things are changing, things are different, things are kind of moved around. And so now we need to get to a point where we feel and understand the change that's going on, right? So let's see what we have from our, I realized I haven't used these cards in a while, and it's because I shoved them in the back somewhere and couldn't find them. Okay, there's 3 of them that have popped out today. These are the essential oil cards. And the first one we have is processing, digestive. And the key word on this is, the trigger statement is, I'm so worried. The true statement is, I have the solution. Slowing down and listening to your inner voice will provide you with direction and purpose. Okay? There's the slowing down bit that's coming in. Our second card is myrrh, kind of appropriate for, speaking of epiphanies, for the day of Epiphany, which is like January 6th. Because that's when they bring gold, frankincense, and myrrh, right? So, interesting. The key word here is support. The trigger statement is, I'm not supported. The true statement is, I move forward with divine grace. Take comfort and know that you are supported. What I just said about guidance, right? Nurture your inner child and connect with the earth. Okay, so we've got, slow down, the answer. 2 is, you are supported in what you're doing. Even if you make a mistake, you're supported. I mean, they'll be like, okay, it's fine. You went this way, you should have go this way now, right? And the last one we got is the yarrow or the palm. This is the 3rd oil. And the key word is divination. And the trigger statement is, I am so drained. I think this one's for me today. The true statement is, I am shielded. You are finding balance as you see what resonates and what does not. With clear sight, you are safe and protected. Okay. So yeah, we're talking about being worried, being drained, feeling unsupported. And it's kind of saying, no, you're working on finding your own balance. And that's kind of back to what I just said earlier about what do I want versus what do I not want, right? What's the space am I in? What do I want? What do I have to do? If I wake up during the day and I don't feel like doing anything, but I have, say, clients booked, and I'm not suggesting that that's the way today is, but it's like if I had clients booked, then it's like, okay, well, I have a duty to my clients, so I will do, I will put whatever, that aside. And usually when I get into working with my clients, I'm happy that I did. I actually feel better afterwards. I feel good working with people. So sometimes it's just a moment of no motivation, right? But then sometimes there's other things where, like I said, it's perfectly okay to say, I'm going to spend time not doing anything and just worrying about recharging my batteries and finding my center, spending time in meditation, or just spending time, I don't know, just going out for a walk, doing something that you want, and not always having to be in that space. So, okay, so we've talked a lot about this, Pluto moving from Capricorn, Pluto moving into Aquarius, how the world's going to change, what's going to be different. We've talked about all these reversals and stuff over the year and so forth, and I think we're kind of going to a space where it's like, okay, we've talked about all this, so this is where we want to see how are we putting it into practice. How can we do that to make our lives, well, really just more joyful and more balanced. And also not to beat ourselves up if we're not feeling joyful. It's like, darn it, I woke up and I'm anxious about this again, and I shouldn't be anxious about this. And then we beat ourselves over the head. So it's kind of saying, well, you don't want to do that either. You don't want to keep beating yourself up over stuff. But you just kind of want to be where you are. And, yeah. So anyway, I feel like this is kind of getting, maybe a bit vague at this point, but yeah, I think that's kind of the point of today's messages. Because this was the card that I had initially, was this split card, and it's saying when you're feeling split, they say, well, you've got to let go of both. Well, to let go of both just means it's not that you don't care about it, but you just kind of got to let it happen and see where you're guided to go. And a starting point might be, well, what do I feel that I want to do here, and what what are my commitments to this situation, and then how do I, and how can I do my commitments and feel joyful? And if I don't feel joyful doing my commitments, then, what's the best thing to do? To walk away? Or is the best thing to, is it a case of something that has to be pushed through? Where do we unknot the knots, right? So anyway, that's my bit of whatever you want to call it for the day after Christmas, or Boxing Day for people over in Canada, UK, and places like that. So in any case, I hope everybody had, like I said, had this restful day, and that today is actually a good day for you, and everything comes out. And Alex says, thanks. This is exactly what I needed to hear this morning. Have a great day. The birthing process is what Suda's mentioning. Yes, there's this. There's a lot that's good. We're still in it, right? Wow, it just disconnected and reconnected. That's funny. Now they're telling me to get off. So anyway, have a great day, you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.